You were never just anyone. You were chosen, and they knew it. There's a reason they tried to break you, a reason they targeted you, drained you, twisted your truth into something unrecognizable. They saw something in you, something powerful, something undeniable. They wanted to silence it, steal it, claim it as their own. But they failed. They acted like they were the chosen ones, like they held the power, like the world revolved around their deception. But real power, real divinity, that was always yours. They built their entire existence on the illusion that they could control you, that they could take what wasn't theirs and wear it like a stolen crown. But the truth has weight, and it's crushing them. Now, the world sees them for what they are. Their lies, their masks, their carefully crafted manipulations, it's all crumbling. And you are rising. Not because they let you, not because you fought them, but because you were always meant to. They tried to convince themselves they were untouchable, that they could rewrite fate. But destiny doesn't bow to frauds. They can try to play the role, mimic the chosen energy, copy your essence, but imitation is not power. You are not just surviving, you are transcending. This isn't just justice. This is the return of something greater, something undeniable. You are the chosen one, and they are nothing more than an echo of a lie. They didn't arrive with chains or force. They came disguised as warmth, understanding, and admiration. At first, it felt like destiny, like meeting someone who truly saw you. But every moment was a calculated performance. They were architects of deception, building an image that reflected everything you longed for. With precision, they observed, imitated, and adapted until they became the perfect companion, the trusted confidant. It was never about connection. It was about dominion. Their kindness had conditions. Their encouragement concealed expectations. Every shared laugh, every whispered secret became a thread in an invisible net tightening around you. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. The foundation of your world shifted without warning. Subtle, almost imperceptible manipulations crept in. Words twisted, memories rewritten. One day you were praised, the next you were diminished. Your strengths were reframed as flaws. Your concerns were dismissed as overreactions. They planted doubts, reshaped your perceptions, until you questioned everything, especially yourself. The landscape of your life changed overnight, yet the only one who seemed unstable was you. Rules were fluid, boundaries evaporated, and before you even noticed, every decision required their approval. Every thought second-guessed their reaction. They convinced you that without them, you were unmoored, lost in an endless void. That was the greatest deception. The walls closed in before you could recognize the construction. One by one, familiar faces blurred into shadows as their words poisoned your trust. They painted allies as enemies, motives as betrayals, leaving you stranded in an artificial solitude where only their voice mattered. With every step, your independence dissolved into dependency, your light into their reflection. They fed on your essence, taking credit for your brilliance, standing taller on the pieces of your fractured spirit. But hunger without limit has no satisfaction. No matter how much you gave, it was never enough. Every moment of hope was just a pause before another plunge into despair, a cycle meticulously designed to ensure you never realized the game they were playing. What they never predicted was the ember they could never extinguish. They believed they had stolen your strength, that they had rewritten your essence. But control built on illusion is always fragile. A single inconsistency, a moment of clarity, a crack in the carefully crafted lie, once seen, could never be unseen. The whispers of doubt grew louder, the illusions lost their grip, and suddenly, the weight you had carried was no longer yours to bear. The world they constructed shattered under the weight of truth. They had no power of their own, only what they took from you. And now, you take it back. They overplayed their hand, mistaking dominance for invincibility. Confidence turned to recklessness, and in their arrogance, they forgot the one rule they always relied on: staying unseen. A misplaced word, a contradiction left unchecked, a glance that lingered too long in the wrong moment. It was enough. At first, the world ignored it, brushed it off as coincidence, but doubt has a way of spreading. One inconsistency led to another, and soon, silence turned into whispers, whispers into conversations, conversations into certainty. The illusion, so carefully maintained, cracked under its own weight. The moment they thought they were untouchable was the moment the ground gave way beneath them. Their own actions set the downfall in motion. Not sabotage, not betrayal, just the natural consequence of deceit, collapsing under its own impossibility. People no longer needed to be convinced. They saw it for themselves. Their once loyal circle hesitated. That hesitation turned to unease, unease to rejection. The authority they clung to was slipping through their fingers, and there was nothing left to hold on to. They tried to twist the narrative, rewrite reality as they had always done, but there was no audience left to believe it. When the mask shattered, it revealed not a mastermind, not a force of power, but a fraud, caught in the web of their own making. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought to light. Mark 4:22. They thought they could keep it buried, locked away in the dark, hidden beneath layers of illusion. But light is not something that asks permission to shine. It breaks through, it exposes, it reveals. Just as the sun rises, no matter how deep the night, truth has a way of burning through deception. And now, here it is, standing in the open for all to see. At first, there was resistance. People clung to denial like a life raft in a sinking storm, refusing to believe what was unfolding before them. It was easier to turn away, to pretend the cracks weren't spreading, to ignore the dissonance between words and reality. But comfort is temporary when the weight of truth presses in. And truth is relentless. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It strikes like thunder in the stillness, like an earthquake under foundations thought to be solid. The realization hit like a flood, breaking through a dam. Sudden, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. Stomachs turned, faces paled, hands that once applauded clenched into fists. The questions came fast and hard. How did we miss this? How long was this right in front of us? Were we part of the lie? And the worst thought of all, the one they tried to push away but couldn't, did we help build this illusion? The shame was suffocating. Those who had fought hardest in their defense now found themselves drowning in regret, heat rising to their faces as they recalled every moment they had dismissed a warning, every doubt they had silenced, every red flag they had explained away. Disgust bloomed where faith once stood. Betrayal burned like fire in their chests. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. And just like that, the exodus began. One by one, they turned away, not out of morality, not out of some newfound righteousness, but out of survival. To stand beside them now was to be consumed by the same downfall, to be stained by the same disgrace. Their most loyal followers, their greatest defenders, the ones who had once sworn their allegiance, started erasing history, distancing themselves from the wreckage. It was like watching a house of cards collapse, each piece falling faster than the last. They had spent years weaving an identity so carefully, so meticulously, convinced they had built something that could never be questioned. But deception is like a poorly built temple. It may stand tall for a while, but the moment the foundation is tested, it crumbles into dust. And now, here they stood, the grand architects of their own ruin, stripped of their illusion, left with nothing but the raw truth staring them down. They had relied on smoke and mirrors, on well-placed words and strategic silences, on the confidence that no one would ever dare to look too closely. But when people finally did, there was nothing there. No power, no legacy, no control, just an exposed fraud standing in the ruins of their empire, watching as the world walked away. And that's the difference between true power and borrowed influence. One stands the test of time, the other disappears the moment the light shines on it. They had mastered the art of distortion, bending reality to fit their version of the story. Every lie carefully planted, every misdirection flawlessly executed. It had always worked before. With just the right tone, the right tears, the right display of supposed innocence, they could manipulate the world into believing whatever they wanted. But not this time. The same tricks that once shielded them now exposed them. The charm had faded. The sob stories lost their impact, and the forced remorse only amplified the emptiness behind their words. The more they pleaded, the more obvious it became. This was just another performance, another desperate attempt to rewrite the ending. The illusion of victimhood had shattered, and with it, the power they once held over the hearts and minds of others. Every deception has a price, and the bill had finally arrived. They had spent years extracting trust, consuming goodwill, thriving off the pain they inflicted without ever thinking about the balance that had to be paid. But energy doesn't disappear. It returns, reshapes, mirrors back the damage done. Every seed of manipulation they planted had bloomed into a thorned garden where they now found themselves trapped. The fear they once weaponized had become their own. The paranoia they instilled in others now clung to them like a shadow. They could feel it, the shift, the weight, the inevitable consequence creeping closer. No more hidden escapes, no more slipping through cracks. Every lie spoken, every betrayal executed, every heart broken. Their past was no longer behind them. It was here, surrounding them, inescapable. The power they took for granted had turned to dust in their hands. They were no longer the orchestrator of chaos. They were its target. The storm they created had come full circle, and now there was nowhere left to hide. They convinced themselves they were untouchable, that their choices would vanish into the void, leaving no trace, no aftermath. While you struggled in the wreckage they left behind, they celebrated, believing they had escaped any reckoning. They miscalculated. Every deception, every wound inflicted, every stolen moment of joy, none of it disappeared. It all remained, circling back, gaining momentum. What they once dismissed as coincidence now feels like an unavoidable tide rising against them. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it unfolds in silence, in the quiet erosion of everything they built on falsehoods. They thrived by draining others, borrowing strength, siphoning trust, feeding off admiration they never earned. But borrowed things must eventually be returned, and what was never truly theirs has begun slipping through their fingers. The same emptiness they once forced upon you is now their own reflection. The people they manipulated so easily before are slipping away, no longer willing to play their part in the illusion. Their influence, once unquestioned, is crumbling as eyes open and loyalties shift. The stories they spun unravel with every contradiction, every hushed conversation held without them, every door closing before they can push it open. They were never afraid of being exposed. What truly terrifies them is becoming irrelevant, invisible, powerless. Their webs will not become garments, nor will they cover themselves with what they make. Their deeds are evil deeds, and acts of violence are in their hands. Isaiah 59:6. They spun their lies like a spider weaves a web, carefully, deliberately, convinced that they had built something strong enough to catch anyone in their grasp. But here's the thing about a web. It only takes one shift, one crack, one gust of truth to tear it apart. And when it does, the spider is left dangling, exposed, powerless. They are starving now, desperate for someone, anyone, to latch onto, to feed from, to believe in their illusion again. The energy they stole, the praise they demanded, the control they thought was permanent, it's slipping through their fingers. They wander through the ruins of their own making, looking for an open door, but every single one is shut. Every opportunity they once walked through so easily has vanished. Every trick they used so effortlessly now falls flat. They thought silence was their weapon, that shutting you out would break you. But now the silence is theirs. No applause, no validation, no audience to manipulate. They speak, but no one listens. They cry, but no one answers. They reach, but there's nothing left to grab onto. And this is what they never prepared for. They always believed that you needed them, that you would crumble without their presence, that you would always be there, waiting, longing, begging for another chance. But they were wrong. It was never you who needed them. It was always them who needed you. You were the source, the light, the foundation. Without your energy, your kindness, your presence to drain, they have nothing. They see you now, standing taller than ever, walking away without looking back. They try to follow, to remind you of the past, to rewrite the ending. But there is no space for them in this new chapter. They wanted to be the authors of your story, but you've taken the pen back, and they are nothing more than a footnote in a book they no longer have the power to edit. Their desperation turns into bitterness. If they cannot control you, they will resent you. If they cannot pull you back in, they will try to destroy what they can't have. But here's where they fail again. Their anger holds no weight anymore. Their opinions, their accusations, their slander, it all falls into the void, ignored, forgotten, powerless. Because you are no longer who you were when they first found you. You are no longer the person they could gaslight, control, manipulate into submission. You are unshakable now, untouchable, free, and they know it. They feel it. They once believed they could own you. But the truth is, they were borrowing time, feeding off stolen power, building their existence on something that was never truly theirs. And now, standing in the wreckage, they realize the one thing they never expected. You have risen, and without you, they are nothing. Their downfall was inevitable, yet they were too consumed with control to see it coming. Every step they took to break you was another brick laid in the foundation of their own collapse. They believed they had power over the truth, that reality could be twisted at their whim. But deception is fragile, and the moment cracks form, collapse is only a matter of time. It's happening slowly, piece by piece, layer by layer, the same way they tried to dismantle you. But the difference is clear. You endured, you rebuilt, and they are unraveling. There is no battle left to fight. The destruction is already in motion. Panic grips them as their grip weakens. They spent so long dictating reality, rewriting stories, bending perception in their favor. But the weight of truth has no mercy, and it is crushing them under its force. Desperation fuels their next move, but their strategies are nothing new. First, the carefully constructed apologies, words designed not to heal, but to manipulate. They speak in riddles, weaving half-truths into empty remorse, hoping you'll question your own clarity. But their voice no longer holds power. Their presence no longer commands obedience. When that fails, the next tactic emerges. The artificial warmth, the sudden affection, the flood of nostalgia. They resurrect old memories, craft a past that never truly existed, reaching for anything that might pull you back into their web. But their timing is too obvious, their motives too transparent. What once might have worked now only serves as proof of their deception. They have dug a pit in my path, but they have fallen into it themselves. Psalm 57, verse 6. They thought they could twist the story one last time, turn the blame back on you, rewrite history in their favor. But the cracks are too deep, the illusion too broken. Look what you've done. After everything, this is how you repay me. The words fall flat. Once, they held weight. Once, they made you question everything. But not anymore. Their power was never real. It only worked when you believed in it. And now you don't. Desperation shifts to anger. If they can't control you, they'll try to destroy you. Guilt, shame, manipulation. None of it lands. They scream into the void, but no one is listening. And that's when they realize there's nothing left to hold on to. You are never coming back. With nothing left to manipulate, they lash out, seeking to dismantle what they can no longer possess. Their whispers poison the air, spreading twisted versions of the past to anyone who will listen. They paint themselves as the wounded, the betrayed, the misunderstood. But this time, the world isn't so quick to believe. The audience they once commanded is turning away, their influence dissolving into irrelevance. What they feared most was never exposure. It was being powerless. And that fear is now their reality. The illusion is breaking apart, the cracks too deep to ignore. Their once flawless act is unraveling, thread by thread, exposing the empty shell beneath. A few still cling to the performance, those too blind to see, too weak to question, too much like them to let go. But the rest are watching, witnessing the slow-motion collapse of someone who built their world on deception. Their usual tricks have lost their effect. The stories no longer line up, the excuses sound rehearsed, and the weight of their own lies is crushing them. They believed they could control perception forever, that they could twist reality indefinitely. But truth doesn't bend, doesn't waver, doesn't fade. It stands unwavering, while they grasp at illusions that no longer hold shape. Their reign has ended. The control is gone. And you are free. They never planned for this moment. Every move they made was meant to ensure you wouldn't rise, that you wouldn't escape, that you'd remain a prisoner to their carefully crafted cycle. They relied on your silence, your compliance, your doubt. But you are not afraid anymore. They wanted you lost in uncertainty, drowning in shame, paralyzed by self-doubt so they could keep feeding off your light. They built their confidence on your hesitation, their strength on your suffering, their influence on your silence. But without you, there is nothing left to sustain them. They know it. They feel it. You were never weak. They only seemed powerful because they drained you to fuel themselves. Their panic is palpable. They reach for you, clawing at the last remnants of their control. Soft words laced with deception, feigned remorse wrapped in manipulation. They pretend to have changed, to have grown, to understand. But the eyes always betray the truth. There is no regret, only fear. Fear of losing the grip they held for so long. And when that fails, the games shift. The past is rewritten, memories distorted. Guilt becomes their weapon. After everything, you would turn your back on me. They twist the narrative, desperate for you to waver, to doubt, to step back into their game, but you don't. The bait remains untouched. The doors they once walked through are locked. Their frustration builds. Their desperation mutates into anger. They lash out, rewrite history, turn themselves into the victim. They whisper to anyone who will listen, spreading their version of events, painting themselves as the one who was wronged. But the audience is shrinking. The world they once controlled is slipping through their fingers, and the more they fight, the more obvious the truth becomes. You don't argue, you don't defend, you don't explain. Your silence is suffocating them. They wanted to be the center of your world, the voice in your mind, the weight on your soul. But now, they are nothing more than a fading shadow. They never expected this. They never planned for you to survive, let alone thrive. They didn't think you'd find your voice, your strength, your peace. Yet here you are, standing tall, unshaken, unbothered. Not because you sought revenge, not because you fought them, but because you chose something greater: healing, growth, freedom. They watch, helpless, as you move forward without them. And that is the one thing they cannot endure. There is no stopping what you've become. Every attempt to diminish you, every effort to keep you bound to their world, it all failed. This is not about vengeance or loud declarations. This is something far greater. This is the silence they never expected, the freedom they cannot touch, the victory they cannot rewrite. They spent years trying to shrink you, but you have expanded beyond their reach. They wanted you shattered, but you have become something unbreakable. They convinced themselves they held power over you, that you would always exist in their shadow. But shadows vanish in the presence of light, and you are radiating. They relied on your reactions, your engagement, the endless cycle of explanations and justifications. But you have given them nothing. No arguments, no words, no validation, just absence. And it is driving them to madness. They once fed on your pain, thrived on your attention, built their illusion on the belief that you would never truly walk away. But you have. You have moved so far beyond their grasp that they are left chasing ghosts, looking for traces of control where none remain. The questions haunt them. Do you think of them? Do you still feel anything? Do they still exist in your world? The answer is the one thing they cannot handle. They don't. The version of you they manipulated is gone, erased by the strength they never saw coming. They thought they could bury you in doubt, leave you stranded in insecurity, force you into dependency. But from that wreckage, you have built something extraordinary. You are untouchable. Not because you fought back, not because you sought revenge, but because you healed. You flourished in ways they never expected, ways they cannot comprehend. They stare from a distance, searching for a way back in. But the doors have closed. Their whispers hold no weight. Their games have no effect. Their name no longer carries meaning. They lost the one thing they thought was permanent, their hold on you. The world sees them now, stripped of the false image they once controlled. The deception no longer sticks. The audience no longer believes. Their power was never real. It existed only as long as you allowed it. And now they are nothing. You are not merely surviving, you are thriving. Not because of them, but despite them. This is the ending they never prepared for, the justice they never saw coming. Not a war, not a confrontation, just their irrelevance and your rise.